really tells you that we have a hell of work to do ahead with the new government to bring it back to some very stable exchange rates. And I think from the political front, it's just important that we don't continue sending shockwaves that we've seen in the public domain. Matters of you know, finance, the exchange rate, availability of the dollar, I think are better left to experts and not politicians. So certain statements that we've had are not helping the situation. But certainly for a country like Kenya that depends on a lot of input, I think it's just good that we see a very proactive measure towards a stable exchange rate between the shilling and the dollar.
All right. Let me hear your thoughts on this as well. Major clash on the floor of the House.
Well, I think on paper, you know, there are different interpretations of the act, yeah? And I think the biggest interpretation that is taken by the two different political formations is the question of a coalition political party and a coalition of political parties, you know. And the argument that I've seen, you know, the Kenya Kwanza folks propagate is that Azimio only has 2 members. That is Raila Odinga and Martha Karua. And I think that is where the speaker has to be very Solomonic. That if the act talks about a corporate coalition political party, does it mean that if your political party is a member of this corporate political party, you are by default, you know, an elected member of this corporate political party? In which case, any politician who is elected on a political party that is within the Azimio coalition is actually an Azimio member of parliament. So you cannot, if that is the interpretation, then you cannot say that Azimio is not a parliamentary political coalition. And then if that, again, is the interpretation, it is just important to go to the documents that were filed at the Register of Political Parties and ascertain what were these documents saying and to what extent, you know, is fidelity to the dictates of the law and what the documents that different political parties lodged says. And after that, I mean, it's fairly clear that if the law stipulates and the law has been interpreted correctly, then the question of numbers is self-determining. But, I mean, politicians make the work of judges a lot more difficult, because one thing I know is that Kenya Kwanza is very good at propagating a narrative. They can propagate a narrative that my name is Hezbon, not Hezbon, until I start doubting myself. But as I say, I think it's just important that you know, the speaker rises beyond, you know, the political bickering and makes a ruling that is Solomonic. Okay,
I hear Duncan, you want to
respond to that? 2 things. One, ab initio, it is much ado about nothing, because whether you are called majority or minority, there is no government bill. It will have to be a vote. And if the coalition, Kenya Kwanza coalition, now have majority of the members in the House, they will still be able to pass all their bills. So whether they call themselves minority or they agree to say we are minority, our bills are going to come, because even minority leader have opportunity to table bills. And if they have numbers, and they have numbers because we have seen the shift, then they will still be passing their bills without any problem. If that is, Azimio are happy and lured by the name majority, that in facts and in practice and praxis, it will make no difference. But secondly...
Well, so there's no difference. Are there parts to which the majority coalition holds, you know, are there advantages to being a majority in parliament as opposed to being a minority? Perhaps that's why there's a clamor?
Every bill must be passed by individual votes. And so Kenya Kwanza have numbers. And therefore, there is no program that is probably government that Azimio can stall whether they take the name majority. Because it will be individual MPs voting for each and every bill, whether it is brought by somebody called the majority leader or the minority leader. And so, but number two, of course, it is important because the Constitution recognizes the idea of there is somebody called the leader of majority.
Who holds a higher position than the minority leader?
Who hold a higher position. Both of them are important offices, yes. So, yes, it's a recognized office.